I'm going to call the meeting to order of Amberley Village Council, and in case anybody notices that I'm not Mayor Tom Muthing, the mayor called in ill today, so you get me. Yay. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Rich Bardak.
Here.
Peg Conway.
Here.
Ed Hattenbach.
Here.
Alita Kamine.
Here.
Ray Warren.
Here.
Natalie Wolf.
Here.
Scott Larmer.
Here.
Kevin McDonough.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A couple different sets of minutes were circulated, the first being for the regular council meeting of February 10th, 2020, and also for the special council meeting of February 24th, 2020. Were there any changes or corrections to those minutes? And being none, do we need a motion to accept them or just accept them? Both the minutes from February 10th and February 24th are accepted as distributed. First, we have the finance report, and that will be Manager Scott Larmer.
Thank you. The finance report has been included in your council packet. It includes the UAN report, but it also provides a summary by staff of the January finances. So I'll just briefly review that. The general fund revenues for the month of January totaled $355,000. Of that amount, $292,000 came from our earnings tax. That earnings tax number is up from January of 2019 by about 16%, but that is 1 month out of the year, so we're off to a good start. Our estimate for the year is $3 million on the earnings tax. Our estimate for all of our revenue for the general fund for 2020 is $5.6 million. On the expense side, our expenses for the month of January exceeded $420,000. The budget for this year is $5.6 million, so we have consumed 7.56% of the budget thus far, and we end January with an unencumbered general fund balance of about $4.6 million. And that concludes the financial report.
Thank you. Any questions, Manager? Being none, we're going to move on to citizens to speak, and we have several guests here to speak. Our first presentation will be from Brendon Cull. First presentation will be from Brendon Cull, who is the COO and Senior Vice President of the Cincinnati, USA Regional Chamber and SORTA Board Member. The topic is Issue 7. And in general, when citizens speak to council, we have a time limit of 3 minutes. But in this case, our Finance Committee has requested that we invite Mr. Cull to come and speak to council. So he's come with a presentation for us, and this is to give our residents more information on Issue 7, and we're going to let him take whatever time he needs. Mr. Cull.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. It's an honor to be here. I appreciate being in front of you and members of council. I brought the 2-hour presentation tonight, so it should be entertaining. And it's an unusual day, so obviously the news keeps developing, but we are still very much focused on an election, which is now almost about 5 days away, on Tuesday, March 17th. So we are really excited about this. We've been working on it for several years, both as a SORTA board member and as a member of the community, working with our business community. And I wanted to give you as much of the high points as I could, and then hopefully if you have any questions or if there are any questions to be asked, answer any questions you might have. So Issue 7 is on the ballot on Tuesday. You can vote right now if you'd like at the Board of Elections, or you can vote at your polling location on Tuesday. We're calling it the Move Forward One Region Plan. We've been working on this for some time for some really key reasons: economic development, reducing poverty, sustainability, population growth, talent attraction, and improving public health. Those are all noble and laudable goals, but what we're really trying to do is build a transportation system that connects us to everything that Hamilton County has to offer: jobs, healthcare, education, and all of the good things that are here. This is our SORTA bus system today. Only 22% of our jobs are in our region are accessible by a 90-minute bus commute. SORTA as a bus system, which is a hallmark, a bus system is a hallmark of a city that is growing and a community that is growing and thriving. We have a $165 million deficit over the next 10 years due to an unsustainable funding model.
I'm sorry. Is there a video playing somewhere? Somewhere else? Okay, sorry.
I'll keep going.
Sorry about that. And while I have everyone's attention, if you can't see, feel free to.
Yeah,
Before you
and
can't
this
see.
is available online as well too. So, and then this is important as well too. So we talk about our bus system. I can answer specific questions about the SORTA bus system, but our infrastructure is in terrible shape too. If anyone has driven on the Western Hills Viaduct, or as I say, worse yet, underneath the Western Hills Viaduct, you know that it is in terrible shape right now. There are 38 functionally obsolete bridges in our county. Nearly 1,000 lane miles in Cincinnati and half of county maintained roads are rated fair or worse. And the cost, as you know, as a village, of paving roads and resurfacing roads continues to go up based on the available supplies that are there. So we know that we have a transit system in our community that is not sufficient, and we know that we have increasing infrastructure needs in our community as well. So here's what the opportunity is, and it's a two-step process of which we are through step one. The first step was to pass something called Issue 22, which was in the city of Cincinnati. The city's earnings tax, as you know, 0.3 of that 2.1%, the city of Cincinnati's earnings tax, 0.3 of that 2.1% currently funds the Metro bus system. It's been like that for almost 50 years since the bus system was taken into public control. So the city of Cincinnati's earnings tax is paying for a countywide bus system right now. The city charter was amended in November to say that if the county passes a sales tax to fund transit in our county, then the city's earnings tax will drop from 2.1 to 1.8%. So anybody who lives or works in the city of Cincinnati's earnings tax will go down. What that does with a 0.8% sales tax in Hamilton County is at $100 million to fully fund the Metro bus plan per year and $30 million a year of new funding for local infrastructure. And I'll go through that as much as I can. Oh, that's new. What happened? There we go. So this was step one. It passed in the city of Cincinnati everywhere, which was great. And this is step two, which is what you will see on the ballot. I'm going to highlight the ballot language. We're talking a lot about roads and bridges in our bus system, so you'll hear us talk about that. But there are a few things on the on the ballot language that I think is important. Notably, that none of the proceeds will be used for the Cincinnati streetcar. Believe it or not, that is important to a lot of people, and we made it very clear that not one penny will go to support the Cincinnati streetcar. This is a plan to fix our bus transit system and infrastructure in our community. What the bus system will do to improve, and this is really important if you're trying to get around Hamilton County, there are three pieces of it: frequency, span, and trip time. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. We talk a lot about this in our Metro meetings. But what's important is if you are trying to get to a job and you miss a bus today and the bus only comes every hour, that is a very difficult situation to be in. Cities that are growing and thriving and that have adequate and growing public transit systems have more like a 15-minute wait time for buses on the most frequent route. Span is about how long the routes go during the day, how long the bus is. So imagine if you are leaving a community and trying to get to another community and the last bus out of that community leaves at 5:50. If you're still at work at 6 o'clock, you're out of luck and you need to find a new way home. And then trip time, we are doing a lot of work to make sure that you can get from point A to point B faster because that's a huge driver. This is the full list of improvements to the plan. You can find it all on the Reinventing Metro website. I think the things that I'm really excited about is in the changing work environment right now, people have jobs that are not 8 to 5. And so making sure that we have 24-hour routes through our community on major thoroughfares, trunk lines we call them, is hugely important. So we'll have 6 routes with 24-hour services helping people get to hospitals and jobs and all of the corridors. We will improve Metro's access service, which is a federally mandated service for the elderly and disabled to be able to use. As we grow, the bus system will be able to grow the access system as well too. That's hugely important for people in our community. And then you can see through the rest of this that we'll have smaller buses as well too. It's frustrating when you see a bus that is not full, although there are reasons for that, which I can talk about, but we're moving to some smaller buses on some routes to be able to move people through. You know, a bus that leaves downtown, if you stand at Government Square, those buses are full. But sometimes by the time it gets to where it's going out in a further community, you see fewer people because people have been dropped off all along, and then it has the effect of having someone be frustrated about our buses. But if you talk to anybody who gets on at the beginning of a route, they know that our bus system is full right now and serving a lot of people, so it's hugely important. You can see here a little bit about the frequency and the maps throughout our community. The blue lines show right now where we have route frequency. I won't go into every single map. They're all on our Reinventing Metro website. There's some cool maps on there where you can see how we are improving service. We're adding circulators up in northern parts of Hamilton County where there's less density. These are higher frequency routes where we'll have 15 minutes or less ability to move through town. And then this is really important too. You see, this is Galbraith here, more crosstown routes extending into Hamilton County. And you can see these are our crosstown routes right now. One of the frustrations with our system is if you live on one side of Hamilton County and want to go to the other side of Hamilton County, you got to go downtown first. Some of that is a function of the fact that we're not a grid city. If you community, if you're in Indianapolis, you know that it's everything's in a right angle. We have hills and we have curvy roads here. But we can do more to have more crosstown routes, and you see how we are doing that to move people through our community, which is great. These are our 24-hour routes now. Haha, there's none. And then these are our new 24-hour routes connecting our communities as well. This is hugely important when you talk to businesses and when you talk to business leaders to say that how, if you talk to the CEO of a local hospital who's talking about getting people to jobs, this is a hugely important benefit. 350,000 jobs will be accessible via 24-hour bus service. More than 20,000 jobs more will be accessible by Metro. This is important to a lot of folks. So far, the SORTA board has been run by a majority of appointees from the city of Cincinnati because the city of Cincinnati's tax authority has funded Metro. That will change under the new structure, and it will be a county-appointed board. SORTA, a transit authority in the state of Ohio, by law, is a county function, as it's a state function, county function, so the county will have the ability to appoint members of the board. These are infrastructure projects throughout Hamilton County. We did a survey with Stantec, more than $1.1 billion in infrastructure projects in our community, in all of Hamilton County, overlap transit routes. All of these will be eligible with the funds that will be used from infrastructure. And then this is the last kind of piece of it that is really important. The infrastructure piece is new. We'll be the first county in Ohio to do that. We're excited about that. State Representative Bill Seitz and State Senator Cecil Thomas were hugely helpful in us getting this passed. They wanted to make sure that it wasn't the SORTA board who was deciding which projects were going to get funded from an infrastructure standpoint. And so Representative Seitz looked at the District 2 Integrating Committee Board. These exist all over the state of Ohio. You don't hear about them a lot because they work so well. They are led by the Hamilton County Engineer's Office. They include a mix of people from townships, from villages and municipalities throughout the county, from the city and from the county, and they work very closely with talented government officials who know transportation and know how to score whether or not a road needs to be fixed or not. So this is not the kind of organization that is out there where there is horse trading for road projects. It's really well run, and we think that's really important from an accountability standpoint. Last thing is tax implications. I talked about this. If you live or work in the city of Cincinnati, your earnings tax will go from 2.1 to 1.8. Your sales tax will obviously go from 7 to 7.8 in Hamilton County. For anybody who lives or works in the city of Cincinnati and makes more than $20,000 a year, that ends up being a tax cut for them. Obviously, it depends differently based on what your local municipality might have from an earnings tax perspective. And obviously, no, that's the case here. But for many people in Hamilton County, who have a job, who work in the city, this ends up being a very financially sensible proposal. We've been endorsed by Republicans and Democrats, by very conservative folks when it comes to taxes, and by folks who wished this plan would have been bigger. We tried to come together with a plan that was judicious and conservative, and relied on our ability to be accountable to taxpayers. Let me stop there.
Thank you.
I tried to keep it under.
Yeah. Does
8
anyone
minutes.
have any questions for Mr. Cull? No, I do have one question, and I asked you earlier. I'm not sure if you had a
You did.
chance. My question was, how does this impact bus service for Amberley Village?
There are not many routes that go directly through Amberley Village today, if there are any at all. Here's been a frustration. I've been on the SORTA board for 5 years, and we've not had the ability to do anything when it comes to building a system that makes sense for our community, to the point where if somebody comes to us and says, this bus shouldn't go down this road, it should go down this road, those sorts of system-wide changes are very difficult to do with an organization that has the kind of deficit that we have every year, an inability to purchase new buses, an inability to serve basically the system that we have right now. Creating a system that fully funds the Reinventing Metro plan allows us to build a system based on what the community wants. And so we put together a very clear plan on where we will add routes, and that's all available on the website. And there's not a ton, to be honest. There's not that I could find new routes that come through Amberley. However, what this does is it allows us to do a better job being responsive to where the community is. Our route system right now looks very similar to the route system that existed with the old streetcars almost 100 years ago. And so that's no way to run a transit system. And so what we need to be able to do is be nimble, be able to use circulators, be able to use smaller vehicles to move people through communities. So we'd love to be able to work with you as we roll this out after this passes on Tuesday.
Okay, then. So everybody should vote on Tuesday. Oh,
One question.
so now we have some questions.
Looking at the infrastructure project map, and so I don't see anything in Amberley Village. Would Section Road be considered a Hamilton County road, or is that specific to the village?
I'm trying to go back. The way that it works is the infrastructure pieces have to be within 3/4 of a mile of a current bus route. But what that does is it allows us to do some pretty significant routes that are crosstown routes that would touch up near the village.
Did you show a route on Galbraith Road?
Yes.
Okay, does that go through Amberley? I mean, Galbraith obviously does.
I was trying to, so I'll be honest with you. I called our CEO right beforehand to ask him. We have done route by route maps by neighborhood, but we did it for the top most populous neighborhoods, and there hadn't been one done for the village. And I asked him to do one for the village. I used my Google Maps to find the routes that came through there, so I may be incorrect, but you can see from the map in terms of where the other crosstown routes go. And I'm not sure where the borders are and how that cuts through. I can get you more specific maps and have those sent to you.
And just to clarify, are in terms of mostly for the purpose of infrastructure eligibility, are the special routes like the Walnut Hills bus route, does that count as a route or no? These are just fixed routes that are like
Fixed routes, yes.
So that doesn't, even though Metro services that doesn't.
Correct.
Count. Okay.
Another question. But there is a route on Lozanneville Road through Golf Manor, right?
Yes, there is, yeah.
And so
That's I don't remember the number.
I think it's a feeder, maybe a feeder route.
Yeah.
But you said before that infrastructure projects would need to be within 3/4 of a mile.
Yeah, so they have to be along the, I think it's access is 3/4 and this is a half. So it would be, I assume that would include some lines through the village. But I can show you that. I can pull the full map for you.
Hey, any other questions?
Just as a
Scott?
follow-up to the question that the Vice Mayor asked in regards to routes in Amberley, one specific route that does not come through Amberley, but that the village benefits from, is on Reading Road. And we have one employer on Section Road who does rely on a bus route to deliver and to take home employees on that route. So just wanted to point that out to you, even though it does not go down Section Road.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me.
Okay, moving on, our next resident to speak is Renee Lemberg.
Thank you, appreciate it.
State your name and your address, please.
Right. Renee Lemberg, 7400 Fair Oaks Drive. Okay?
Yep.
So I came to talk about what I think is somewhat of a safety issue, at least it is for me and it may be for others. About 7 months ago, I walked out of my house and there were men looking all up at my trees that I cherish by my front walk, and I wanted to know where they were from. They had a beautiful white van parked in front of my house, not a scratch on it, and no one spoke English, so I looked for a sign. There wasn't any. I looked for a T-shirt. There was no name. I asked if anyone had a card. I brought a card in from outside to see if anybody had any kind of identification. None of the above. So I went. I didn't want them touching the trees, and we did not ask them to come out. So I don't know what happened. I had to leave the house, but my precious pear trees are still there. But approximately 5 months later, a friend was meeting for lunch. She parked at my house. I was taking her out, and I go down my driveway. Look, I'll be darned. There's the same sparkling, clean white van, and it was parked one street up, and I see there's dirt all over the side of my driveway, all over my driveway, like was tilled, and it was lumpy. It hadn't rained much, and I tried the same thing. Didn't hit me for a second. It was the same people. But they had anybody can put a metal sign, of course, on the van whenever they want. But no one could converse with me. No one had a T-shirt. No one had a card. No one had any kind of identification. So I pointed out in sign language like we all do, and he just pointed to the house next door, which I assume was the owner. I had called the village about the first situation, and they said, well, it must have been fiber optics. And I understand people, what's the word I'm looking for? When you leak some of the job out, you don't do it all, you contract it out. And I understand that, but I called. And they say they never have anybody come out without a proper identification of who they are and what they're doing. So when it happened again, I called the village again. And I was told, oh, it must be Duke Energy. Well, it wasn't Duke Energy because they had the same exact answer. We do not do that. We don't send people out to go on your property, touch it, dig it up in any way, unless we have some kind of identification and we converse with you in some manner. So I wasn't happy about either one of the incidents. And then when I was out of town, actually when I was in Florida, and I guess it was late February, there was an article about a woman who had ordered a dryer. And they pulled the dryer up to her home, and people heard yells. They stabbed her. The one repairman stabbed her to death, poured kerosene all over her body, burnt her. They finally found the white van that the police had a hard time finding that was from Best Buy. Okay, so my point on this particular situation is, they told me to contact the man. I couldn't contact the man because even Chief Ritchie couldn't when we were trying to find out some car break-ins. They don't answer the phone, and I tried knocking on every door. So I was very lucky. One time I was outside, and I saw the man go in the driveway. I happened to have a key ring with a whistle, and it was so loud everybody came out. And he just said, well, yeah, I use them. I said, well, can you tell them what to do, or do you stay home? He said, well, doesn't it look better? And I said, what about my yard? He said, well,
Renee,
my time limit's up?
well, your time limit is up and you had a safety issue?
Yes,
So,
and here's the safety.
did you notify the police when this happened?
I notified the village.
So,
I didn't feel my life was threatened. You understand? Would you want people on your property walking around and looking at your trees and coming up a driveway, then tearing it all up? So yes, I did the best I could. And the gentleman said, yes, I tore up the lawn. He came out with a whistle. He said, I tore up your yard because I thought it was mine. And I said, no, mine is a pie shape and it goes all the way to the top. So I don't know what I do about this. I can't get the proper answers I would like to have from the village. I don't think I would call a policeman on this issue.
But you should call the police. If you have a safety concern on your property, that is the best way to get an immediate response, and they would be glad to allay your concerns.
Okay, well, then I made a mistake. Because
Well, you've come here and you've shared
Right.
your concern, and it's useful for other people to hear
And
this
I
on the
may have
video.
done, yeah, I understand, and I may have done that, but each time I was leaving the house and didn't come back in time because I was on my way out. But it makes perfect sense, and I appreciate it. That's it.
People will see it on video and
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Matt Hiudt on the topic of Amberley Green. Please state your name and your address.
Hello, my name is Matt Hiudt. My wife Drew and I live at 7701 Sagamore Drive. I've been an Amberley resident since 2015. My parents, grandparents, and many extended family members have, over the years, called Amberley Village home for decades. My entire family have been members of the JCC since the location in Roselawn and have been active members of the JCC since it moved to its new location in Amberley. I remember going to the J as a child when it was in Roselawn and attending the JCC camp there. I have very fond memories of those times and have friendships today that started in those days. I suspect that children today who attend the JCC camp are creating those memories as well. Going to summer camp can be a very important and meaningful experience for children. I spent my entire childhood and young adult life attending camp. I have seen firsthand what a summer camp environment can do for young children. Camp can allow children to grow, build relationships, and connect with other children and adults in a safe and accepting environment. It's my understanding that the JCC is busting at the seams, and pursuing the expansion of their day camp and early childhood school is a critical element for the J's current and future success in Amberley. I know that part of the proposed expansion plan is to help grow the early childhood school to accommodate the existing waiting list and to allow for the camp to grow and improve the camp experience as well. I fully believe that the JCC plays a vital role for Amberley Village and the community in general. We should do what we can to help accommodate their needs for growth. We help them, they help us. I have heard arguments that some Amberley residents want to keep Amberley Green a green space. In my mind, we would get the best of both worlds: an expansion of the JCC facility and a massive upgrade to the Amberley Green property at no cost to the residents, and still have a green space park environment. I am a huge advocate for keeping a portion of the Amberley Green land as a park. I take my dog on walks there many days and therefore appreciate the importance of city parks. But in its current state, Amberley Green is an eyesore to the village and honestly a bit of an embarrassment to our beautiful community. There are so many wonderful, iconic public parks all throughout Cincinnati, and we have the opportunity for Amberley Village to be a part of that conversation. I feel the redevelopment of Amberley Green will be an asset to the village, help our property values, and strongly feel the expansion is vital to the JCC's growth and the Amberley community as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have John Chaiken, also on the topic of Amberley Green.
Good evening, John Chaiken, 2451 Brookwood Lane. Members of council, I have been following with interest the committee and town hall discussions regarding the outcome of development of the Amberley Green and would like to comment on the latest proposal under consideration. Recognizing a firm commitment or framework with the JCC is still pending, I think that the proposed plan seems to be good for the community by providing more access to enhanced recreational and play space. I think the proposed plan seems to be a good addition to the overall image of Amberley, which should translate positively for property owners. From a revenue perspective, it would seem to be in the best interest of Amberley to support the community's largest employer and largest generator of income tax revenue, or payroll tax revenue. And lastly, this proposed plan would seem to be a good opportunity for the JCC to increase services, increase the total number of people that it employs by freeing up space in its existing footprint, and thus generate more earnings tax revenue for Amberley. The process of if and how to develop the Amberley Green has not been an easy proposition, given the necessity to balance the needs of the community, the costs related to the acquisition and the maintenance of the property, and the aspects related to the quality of life for all residents. I would like to thank each of you for your commitment to making sure that the decision is thoughtfully considered and at the end of the day delivers a plan that will benefit all of Amberley. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Colin Driscoll.
Colin Driscoll, 6600 Ridge Road. I'm sure we all agree that the JCC is an important partner in our community. Among other things, their employees provide payroll revenue of $80,000 to $85,000 annually, which helps offset village expenses. Residents also need to be aware that the relationship isn't only a one-way street that benefits the village alone. We provide important benefits to the J as well. The acquisition, construction, and equipping of the J facility has also been supported by the village serving as project host for their $35 million municipal debt. I don't think the average resident realizes that the J is currently $35 million in debt. A recent article in the Business Journal states that the J is planning a $25 million expansion. If this expansion is supported by additional debt, this may mean the J's overall debt load might increase to $60 million. The village serving as project host to the J on their municipal debt allows the J to issue lower cost tax exempt bonds versus higher cost taxable bonds, saving them substantial funds annually. I pulled the J's most recent 4 nonprofit tax returns. They show the J has incurred $1.8 million in cumulative interest costs 2014 to 2017. The interest savings through the tax-free municipal financing made available by the village serving as project host most likely exceeds the roughly $85,000 payroll revenue their employees pay to the village. If the J can afford $600,000 in interest costs on their debt 2017 Form 990, and may be looking to add substantial additional debt, I think the village doesn't need to subsidize the J with the requested lease payment terms of $1 per year. Most residents, or I feel most residents, are against what they might consider to be a JCC land giveaway, and I'd like council to work on the terms of whatever proposal the J is proposing. And by next meeting, we'll be 4 years and 2 days into us voting down Amberley Development Partners, Fred Mayerson's group. And at that point, I might come back and kind of summarize the last 4 years from my perspective as a resident. I'm finished.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is Craig Sarembock.
Good evening. My name is Craig Sarembock. I live at 7010 Beach Hollow Drive. I've lived there since 2013. I did just want to mention, I think there's maybe some misinformation going around, but the JCC no longer has $35 million in debt. So, just to make that clear, those bonds were paid off years ago. Honestly, I don't think I can say it any better than Mr. Hiudt, Mr. Chaiken. The JCC is really a central piece of this community, it's a central piece of this community for everyone. It's not just Jews, it's every religion. It's a welcoming place, and it's a place that we want to see continue to grow and expand. And in this particular opportunity, I feel that it's a win-win. It's a win for the JCC, and it's a huge win for Amberley. Already, as we've pointed out, I think all of us drive up and down, and we see this eyesore, as Matt put it, just sitting there, and people arguing back and forth about maybe what it should be, what it could be, this, that, and the other thing. Here we have a viable opportunity to really expand it and make it a central place for the entire Amberley Village. We all deserve that as residents. There's no reason why we need to go to the Blue Ash Rec Center or to Summit Park or to the Madeira or Wyoming Swim Club. The reality is we should have that here, and we have a huge opportunity to do that. We should seize that opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to move on to committee reports, starting with the Finance Committee, and that would be Councilperson Ed Hattenbach.
Thank you, Ms. Wolf. I would introduce ordinance number 2020-4, amending appropriations in the general fund and the PSEP fund for the fiscal year 2020. In December of each year, the village appropriates monies for the funds to be used for the following year. In February of this year, the village made aware of our physical hardware warranty on our server, which is primarily used by our police department, had expired, and the current operating system was no longer supported by Microsoft. We sought out contracts, and what we need to do is to appropriate $27,500 for the general fund to cover this expense. In addition, the village determined it is our best interest to convert to the Hamilton County 911 service, and in doing so, we had $438.39 left into our PSEP fund, which we will be appropriating for dispatch expenses. Accordingly, I move to introduce ordinance number 2020-24, an ordinance amending appropriations for the year 2020.
Okay, it has been moved
Second.
and seconded. This is ordinance 2020-4, amending appropriations in the general fund and PSEP 911 fund? Or is that separate?
No, they're both the same ordinance. Thank you.
Any discussion? Okay, being none, I will,
We'll call.
the clerk will call the roll.
Richard Bardak. Peg Conway.
Yes.
Ed Hattenbach.
Yes.
Alita Kamine.
Yes.
Ray Warren.
Yes.
Natalie Wolf.
Yes,
That concludes my report.
and the motion passes. Thank you. And moving on to the Police Fire Committee, and this is Councilperson Peg Conway.
Thank you. Continuing with the server issue, the committee met on February 26th to discuss a couple of items, including the server. As Councilmember Hattenbach noted, it was brought to our attention that the technology was no longer being supported. This truthfully was a bit of an oversight that came to light after the budget was prepared, hence the need for additional appropriations. And it's important because if there was a long downtime, a hardware failure could occur and it would not be able to be replaced. And there are also security concerns and the possible increased risk of cyber attacks and viruses. So therefore, I move that we adopt resolution number 2020-5, authorizing the village manager to enter into a contract to purchase a new Dell Power Server Edge for village operations at a cost of $27,517, which will be purchased from Intrust IT.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Resolution 2020-5, contract for purchase of new Dell Power Edge. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? And motion passes.
Okay, and then the next item concerns firefighting, protective gear, turnout gear. Normally, the village purchases about 3 sets a year just to keep things rotating. This year, there's a need to purchase additional sets because of wear and tear, and in particular, some Velcro closures that are designed to secure the pants and jacket are no longer performing as they should. The total budget available is $16,000, which you may have noted in the resolution that it's listed as $60,000. Just want to be clear about that. Currently, staff is working on a grant application for some fire protective gear. So initially, the purchase will be for 3 sets, and then more will be purchased later in the year, either with our funds or with grant funds. So, the vendor involved with this purchase is Vogel Pole Fire Equipment. So I'd move that we adopt resolution number 2020-6, awarding a contract to purchase personal protective equipment for firefighters from Vogel Pole Fire Equipment.
I second that.
It has been moved and seconded on resolution 2020-6. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the motion passes.
Okay, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Next up, Streets, Public Utilities, and Sewers Committee. Mr. Warren.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. The Streets, Public Utilities, and Sewer Committee met last week on March 2nd, and we covered a lot of ground that you see before you in terms of various resolutions before you. The first resolution relates to our mowing contract. The village began contracting the grass mowing in 2008 when the Amberley Green property was acquired. The mowing contract was expanded in 2013 to allow the maintenance department to dedicate more man-hours to their larger projects such as stormwater and road improvement projects. Prior to each mowing season, staff solicits quotes from several local contractors. Receiving multiple quotes has historically favored the village in acquiring the best per-cut prices. In recent years, the village has awarded 3 contracts for the mowing around the municipal building and grounds, the Amberley Green property, and the North Side Plus Village rights of way. The previous mowing contracts were 2-year contracts for the 2017-18 mowing season and a 1-year contract for the 2019 season. The 2020 mowing contract includes an option for an additional year in 2021. After some performance issues in 2019, staff reviewed and updated the specs for the mowing services. With the increasing in the number of mowing visits and the overall cost of the mowing contracts, the 2020 grass mowing specs were advertised with formal bids opened on Wednesday, February 19th. The village received 2 bids, with one contractor submitting only on certain aspects of the bid, which is typical and expected. The mowing contracts are segregated since there are various properties involved, different skill sets and equipment needed, and vendors only interested in certain mowing areas. The bid is attached, but is summarized below with an analysis of the anticipated costs. We received 2 bids, as I mentioned. One was from MS Lawn Care and the other from Frederick's Landscaping. Both of these mowing services have performed work for the village in the past. With regard to Contract A, which covers the municipal building and grounds, we received 1 bid. MS Lawn Care did not submit a bid for that area. We received a bid from Frederick's Landscaping to the tune of $807.04 per cut. It's pretty unusual, but that was their bid. As you might recall, Brightview was the only contractor in 2019 to submit a bid for this area in the amount of $220 a cut. So it was considerably less. But we also know we had considerable issues with Brightview last year. They did not submit a bid for this year. Using 28 cuts to estimate the cost for 2020, Frederick's Landscaping is the lowest and most responsible contractor at a cost of about $22,500. With regard to Contract B, which covers the Amberley Green property, we received bids from both MS Lawn Care and Frederick's Landscaping. This includes mowing along the front fairways, along Ridge and Galbraith roads, that is what's visible from the road, as well as the inner property. And there would also be periodic bush hogging of the meadowlands. The overall cost from Frederick's Landscaping was less than MS Landscaping, and so we recommend pursuing the contract with Frederick's Landscaping for the Amberley Green property. And the amount will be $155.16 per cut for the front fairways and $1,055 for the inner property for the 2020 season. With regard to Contract C, or Area C, which covers the north site and the village rights of way, as well as the entrance ramps to Ronald Reagan Highway, or the ramps around Ronald Reagan Highway, we only received a bid from Frederick's Landscaping at a cost of $527.68 per cut. Last year, Brightview was the only contractor to submit a bid for this area in the amount of $970. Using the number of 28 cuts to estimate cost, the 2020 Frederick's Landscaping bid represents the lowest and most responsible at a cost of $14,775. So, in summary, we're recommending a contract for Frederick's Landscaping, which will amount to a total cost to the village of about $56,491.68, based on the number of estimated cuts I've described. I should say the staff also recommended that we go with Frederick's Landscaping. So before you is Resolution 2020-7, authorizing the village manager to enter into a contract for mowing services on village-owned property and village rights of way.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Second.
Okay, it has been, Resolution 2020-7 has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Ask a question. So let me just clarify. You said $56,400 for all three contracts.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
And to be clear, it is considerably higher than last year. We also thought we had some low bid, kind of low or underbidding from Brightview. We had issues with their quality of work. And so we think we'll have a much better service, a much better product this coming year. As I said, and Fredericks has done work for the village in the past.
Okay. All in favor of Resolution 2020-7, authorizing the village manager to enter into a contract for mowing services on village-owned property and village right-of-ways with Fredericks?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion passes.
The next item relates to the replacement of our wood chipper, or brush chipper. The village currently has two chippers. The chippers are used to break down smaller tree limbs, and as you know, the village probably has among the highest density of trees and suburban properties in the county. So we see a lot of wind and storm damage over the last several years that will occupy these chippers quite a bit. So I mentioned we have two chippers. The older chipper was purchased in 2001, and our newer one was purchased in 2013. The village has targeted a 15-year service life for the chippers, 8 years of frontline service or most active service, and 7 years as a backup unit. The 2001 unit is now in its 19th year of service and is no longer reliable as a backup unit. The 2013 unit is in its 7th year of frontline service, and although the machine is well maintained, it's typical in equipment of this type and age to see a loss of engine power, an increase in the costs to maintain and repair. The backup unit, our current backup unit currently has over 6,600 engine hours of service, which well exceeds the expected service life. And I should say the reason why it's lasted this long is that we generally dedicate it to smaller limbs. So if you use large limbs, use more power, and it'll tend to break down. So I really commend the maintenance department for this length of service that we've achieved. Mr. Monahan of the Maintenance Department identified a suitable replacement and recommended a chipper from Vermeer Heartland, equipped with a diesel engine for better longevity. The cost, which was discounted from the Ohio State bid program, comes to about $63,000. And this will be reduced by $6,500 with a trade-in of our older chipper. So the net cost to the village will be approximately 40, what did you say?
57.
I'm sorry, $57,497. Thank you. So before you is Resolution 2020-8, authorizing the village manager to enter into a contract to replace a brush chipper. And that is my motion to approve that resolution.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we pass Resolution 2020-8, authorizing the village manager to enter into a contract to replace a brush chipper. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Next item before you relates to enter into a contract to purchase a new mini excavator. The mini excavator should be viewed as a mini bulldozer. It's regularly used at our composting site at the north site. It's used to move down trees and logs. Due to wear and tear, it needs to be replaced and was part of our capital equipment replacement program. Mr. Chesney of our maintenance department became aware of a competitive grant application from the Hamilton County Solid Waste District and applied for an amount that would cover most of its cost. We were one of 2 municipalities that were awarded grants. The cost of this excavator with assorted attachments from the Southeastern Equipment Company is $54,359. This discounted cost is under the preferred Ohio State bid program. Of this amount, $43,800 will come from this grant, bringing the net cost to the village of about $10,559. Excuse me? That's the net cost after the grant. So this grant was quite substantial. And we were also lucky that not many municipalities were aware of this grant program. So there was not much competition. So before you is motion 2020-9, authorizing the purchase of a mini excavator from the Southeastern Equipment Company. It's a motion to approve.
Second? Second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded.
Okay, let me just make one point clear. I know if Ed, you were going to bring this up. So the motion is to pay for this full cost of the excavator, okay? And then we will get the grant, and that will, okay.
Be addressed.
Okay.
Ed, did you have something to add?
No, that's fine.
Okay.
We took care of it.
Any other discussion? Okay, those in favor of Resolution 2020-9 for the new mini excavator, say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? Resolution 2020-9 passes.
Okay, moving down the list. Before you is Resolution 2020-10, authorizing the replacement of 2 new utility vehicles that are called Gators for the village from Bud Herbert Motors. The Gators are, large, can be viewed as oversized golf carts, right? And so these Gators are designed to help the village haul material and travel across terrain ranging from smooth to very rough. Our utility vehicles are John Deere Gators. The original Gator, built in the year 2000, is a 6-wheeled, 4-wheel drive gas vehicle. This Gator has been used to plow snow, drag the ball field surface before games, pick up trash and empty trash cans, haul wood playground mulch to the upper track and playground exercise stations, and general work on or around the municipal building grounds. You've probably seen these Gators at the village events, our summer event in August, hauling various materials around. The original Gator, I mentioned before, is built in 2000. So this 20-year-old Gator is at the end of its service life, and since the Gator is six-wheeled, it's sometimes difficult to drive and turn in tight places. General top speed of this Gator is around 10 miles per hour, which limits driving off-road. This was the first generation of this type of vehicle, and many advancements have since been made. The second Gator is a 2009 vehicle. It's a four-wheeled, four-wheel drive diesel Gator. It was purchased to be used around the Amberley Green property and used to be stored in the lower cart storage garage. Since this Gator is more user-friendly and has a faster top speed, the diesel Gator is now stored at the municipal building back garage. It's also used to do regular municipal building maintenance, plus driving to Amberley Green via Ridge Road when needed. This Gator is used for picking up trash, transporting crew, deer culling around French Park, and other properties in the village. The police and fire departments have used both Gators over the years for search and rescue operations and transporting injured victims to the Life Squad out of wood trails in French Park. Both Gators have been used during, I mentioned before, special village functions such as the 75th anniversary, safety bike fair, one-stop drop, and the ice cream social. The village budgeted $12,000 for the purchase of a new Gator. Since looking into purchasing a new Gator, staff contemplated replacing both Gators at the same time and pursued dispensing with obsolete equipment that the village no longer uses, which could supplement the cost of a second Gator. Staff had considered auctioning the equipment through the Hamilton County auction website, but favorable pricing was received from the Gator dealer, Bud Herbert Motors. So, the list of equipment in the trade includes, the top item includes a 1986 Ford low-profile tractor that has a trade-in value of $4,000, and other items that are used associated with this tractor that amount to a little over $2,000. So the total trade-in is about $6,100. The cost of each Gator, let me make sure I got this right here. The cost of both Gators would be about $14,400 each for a total cost of $28,800. With the trade-in of the older Gator, worth $8,250, together with the other equipment I just mentioned, worth $6,100, brings the net cost of two new Gators to $14,350, which is almost the cost of one Gator. So, before you is a motion to pass Resolution 2020-10, authorizing the village manager to enter into a contract to purchase two new Gators at a cost of $14,453.
It's been moved and seconded. Resolution 2020-10, authorizing the village manager to enter into a contract to purchase two new Gators, has been moved and seconded. Any discussion? I just want to point out that for those who live in Amberley Village, we're kind of like the, it's kind of like running your garage, your house, mow the lawn, we keep the roads maintained. It's not always a ton of exciting stuff, but you may not think about the lifespan of a piece of machinery, but it does wear out, and we do need to replace it.
And just to add to that, I think we have to hand it to the maintenance department to really keep on top of our equipment. We've entered into a cycle where we can identify the lifetime of equipment, and what we've seen over the years is that oftentimes the equipment lasts a bit longer, and our maintenance staff takes the initiative to see, can we get funds to help pay for new equipment. And so, when we get this type of grant that pays for about 80% of, a big ticket item, I mean, that's a big deal.
Ray, I'm sorry, but speaking of the grant, I forgot to mention a big thanks to a resident, Sandy
Yes.
Bywin, who
Thank you.
is very, very helpful in helping us write and achieve those grants. Okay.
Okay, one more item.
We haven't voted yet.
Oh, sorry.
So it's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes.
Okay, last item from the Streets Committee, and I will summarize what's before you, because it's a multi-page detail of the Hamilton County Stormwater District. So, the Hamilton County Stormwater District is required to implement the obligations mandated by the Ohio EPA, which includes management of stormwater systems. Rather than create our own district, in 2003, the village became a member of the Hamilton County District. And before I continue, I'd like to ask the village manager if I misrepresent something, please correct me. Okay, because this was a little bit detailed. Rather than create our own district in 2003, the village became a member of the Hamilton County District. The village falls under the mandates that are created, and within this arrangement, the village performs inspections on behalf of the county. To be compliant with Ohio, the Hamilton County District amended regulations associated with ORC 307.79 that pertains to stormwater prevention pollution plans at construction sites. The principal change in these amendments includes the threshold of acreage requiring a stormwater control plan and permit will be reduced from 5 acres to 1 acre. This is to ensure that excess water runoff is controlled. So, that's my summary of the amendment before you. So before you is Resolution 2020-11, adopting amended Article 1, 3, and 5 Rules and Regulations for the Hamilton County Stormwater District. That's a motion to approve.
Okay, Resolution 2020-11, adopting amended Article 1, 3, and 5 Rules and Regulations for the Hamilton County Stormwater District has been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Just have one, I'm sorry.
Oh, is there any discussion?
Just have one comment. Scott, was that adequate? Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, any more discussion? All in favor, say
Aye.
aye. All opposed? And the motion passes. Thank you.
And that
Mr.
concludes,
Warren.
and
Anything
that
else?
concludes the Streets Committee report.
Moving on to the Law Committee, Mr. Bardak.
Resolution 2020-12 refers to the Planning Commission changes to the village zoning code, specifically 2 code sections regarding fences and chickens. And essentially how this will work is these 2 code sections will be referred to the Planning Commission for review and recommendation back to council, at which point in time council will have public hearings and be able to vet these 2 code sections on the record. Specifically, code section 154-14 deals with fences, walls, and hedges, and essentially boiled down deals with the type of material that can be used in constructing residential fencing. Section 154.54 D4 deals with the chicken coop ordinance and deals with changing the allowable height for fencing around chicken coops. So I move to adopt Resolution 2020-12 referring to the Planning Commission changes to these 2 specific village code sections.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to refer to the Planning Commission changes in the village code. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And the motion passes.
Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Okay, on to the Compensation and Benefits Committee. Alita?
Sure, thank you. So the Compensation and Benefits Committee met on February 24th, and the topic of that was our annual compensation for our employees meeting. Always a lively discussion about how wonderful our employees are and all the great things they do, but also an opportunity to review all of our financials and the history of our salary increases and what are a good opportunity to compare against our peer communities, which is important to this committee. So last year we gave a 2% increase that was the budgeted increase plus a 0.5% one-time bonus. And part of what we discussed at this meeting, I think it's important to understand for what we're proposing this year, was that 0.5% was very complicated to execute and implement, and because of the taxes and because of just it ended up being kind of not a better way to create a bonus structure, and so we really kind of took off the table doing that again because it was not the right fit for how to do that. So we heard our annual staff presentation, in addition to reviewing all the materials prepared by the village manager, looking at how Amberley, though we have been doing pretty well in terms of keeping up with our peer communities, we're starting to actually lag behind. And if you look at it over a 10-year percentage, we're actually starting to really lag behind, and our employees are concerned about that. And obviously, I've mentioned before that we're looking at attraction and retention of our employees as we have an aging workforce, as everybody else does, and how we can make sure that we are competitive in that sense. So, and also, last year, our increase was a little bit behind inflation, so we also wanted to make sure that we, understood kind of how to do some of those things. The other part of the presentation was from the employees was around benefits, which is another thing that the committee really looks at, and the kind of non-financial benefits we will take up at another time, but looking at peer communities and looking at making sure our benefits package is comprehensive. But one thing that was brought up in the context of compensation and was very, very important to the employees, rose to the top of their list, and we have actually heard this from them in many years, was the issue of longevity pay, which is essentially a bonus that you receive after, at certain thresholds, certain milestones, rewarding employees for their longevity with the village. And it is something that, first of all, we learned is very common. Most of our peer communities have it. It's apparently a common thing in the public sector. And it is also something the village used to have, did away with in 2013 as a result of just financial cuts at that time. But it was the people who were receiving it were grandfathered in, and what it created was a two-tier system with a lot of kind of morale challenges within our, so not financial challenges, but morale issues inside the department. So that was heavily advocated for, and when we did the math, it was a very small amount of money that doesn't grow every year. It kind of ebbs and flows, but as people retire and new people come in, some years will be actually much, much lower. So what the committee discussed, our budget, what we budgeted for, that we had a really good year financially last year, that our employees were told last year basically, hey, wait for 2100 section or something, and we, didn't necessarily think that was fair. We want to stay competitive with other communities. We want to, attraction and retention and morale are very important, and they had a good year, and we had a good year, and the recommendation of the committee is a 3% increase for compensation this year, and bringing back longevity pay, which impacts, I believe, 9 employees. And the financial impact of that, we budgeted 2% this year, so this is an amount more than what we originally budgeted for, but will be, depending on what happens with retention this year, approximately $35,000 additional for the compensation, and the longevity pay will be approximately $4,500. So that is what the ordinance 2020-5 recommending that compensation, fixing the compensation for employees. We also need to do this as an emergency ordinance and waive the 3 readings. So the first thing I will do is move that we waive the 3 readings for ordinance 2020-5.
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that we waive the 3 readings and declare an emergency for the passage of ordinance number 2020-5, so that it will become effective April 1st. Is there any discussion?
What? No.
Let's make that motion just to waive the 3 readings. The emergency will come as the
Okay.
third motion.
All right, so it has been moved and seconded that we waive the 3
Yes.
readings. Any discussion? Okay, please call the roll.
Richard Bardak.
Yes.
Peg Conway.
Yes.
Ed Hattenbach.
Yes.
Alita Kamine.
Yes.
Ray Warren.
Yes.
Natalie Wolf.
Yes.
And then I would like to move that we pass ordinance 2020-5, fixing compensation for our employees.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded, ordinance 2020-5, fixing compensation for village employees. Any discussion? Ms. Warren?
Thank you. I just have first I have a question. What is the current longevity pay that is, what is budgeted now?
The dollar amount,
Yeah.
I can't tell you that off the top of my head. It is, I would have to look that up. I can't tell you what the dollar amount
So
is.
what we're voting on is an additional would be a longevity pay for those who are currently not receiving it. And if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Kamine, you said that that would amount to about $4,500 in new dollars.
For
Correct.
this year, for this year, and
Correct,
so,
for this
yeah.
year.
And I wanted to clarify, we're reinstating it effective going forward. We're not looking back to cover anything
Right.
that might have been paid.
So I just wanted to comment on the longevity pay piece. So I was chair of the Compensation Benefits Committee at the time. And as you mentioned, we had some severe financial issues at that time, some of which remain. And in fact, the Compensation Committee wanted to do away with longevity pay at the time. That is, do away with all longevity pay. It would affect both current employees and new employees. And the thought was, well, current employees have been receiving this, and it would essentially amount to a pay cut if it were eliminated. And so that's why we initiated, it would only apply to new employees. But the idea was that eventually it would go away, okay? And so it was, and at that time, it's too bad the mayor's not here, he also sat on the Compensation Committee, we felt that that was something that should, see sunset. So I still don't understand why it's being enacted or coming back.
I wanted to comment on that as well, apart even from your question. What really struck the committee in the conversation is that it's been 7 years and it's still coming up. And there've been a lot of changes. Employees have accepted a lot of changes to their benefits, the cost sharing that's been implemented, and it clearly was very important to them, and it wasn't that much money. And if it was that important to them for not that much money, we wanted to make that possible. We did actually, the mayor was present at the committee meeting, and we did ask him for his view, and he did not, he just noted that it seems like something seemed like dated, or it was not familiar to the private sector, but it clearly is common yet in the public sector. And so that, and the data on kind of falling behind, that was also, I don't want to say it was compelling, but it kind of fed into the desire to reinstate that benefit.
Did the committee consider bonuses instead? See how the village finances are doing and award bonuses?
I think I do, we talk about that every year. Actually, we did talk, I brought up that we didn't want to do the 0.5% because we did talk about, instead of the 3%, doing a one-time flat rate bonus for everybody, unrelated to longevity pay. But this is, as Councilmember Conway mentioned, I think this is something that has come up. I think it's come up every year in this, since I've been the chair of this committee, that the staff brings this up as it's impacting morale. And yeah, maybe if we wait another 10 years, it'll finally be gone. But it was their number one. They had a whole giant spreadsheet of all the benefits that we offer and all the things where, Indianella is way ahead of us and all these people. And this was the thing they wanted to go to the mat for. And it really was, I agree. I mean, I mentioned it before as well. It seems odd to me as a private person who's never, it's not something that I'm familiar with, but it was like community after community offered this as well, and we felt like as a comparative benefit. Now, look, the reality is that if we end up in financial straits again in the future, there are a lot of different ways to revisit longevity pay, the amounts, all of those sorts of pieces, but the actual structure is something that our employees have been advocating for at least the last 4 years, and we felt like for $4,500 it was. And potentially, I mean, if you actually look going forward, we'll have a horizon in the future where there's kind of going to be a cliff where a lot of people fall off of it because of retirements and stuff. And so we actually may end up in a situation where we have some years where it's going to, really decrease there. But anyway, I mean, I hear your points and I totally understand. I think I agree with Councilmember Conway that we kind of reviewed all of our options, listened to our employees, understood the sort of scope of the discussion and the benefit versus the comp piece of this. And I think this small gesture will go a long way with our employees. That's how the committee felt when we had this conversation, and which is why we're recommending it.
Okay, any more discussion on this piece? So it has, ordinance 2020-5 has been moved and seconded. Can the clerk call the roll, please?
Rich Bardak.
Yes.
Peg Conway.
Yes.
Ed Hattenbach.
Yes.
Alita Kamine.
Yes.
Ray Warren.
No.
Natalie Wolf.
Yes.
Okay, and finally, we need to declare this an emergency, so I'd like to move that we declare ordinance 2020-5 an emergency.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded that ordinance 2020-5 will be declared an emergency, thereby waiving the 3 readings. Any discussion? Okay, being none, clerk will call the roll.
Richard Bardak.
Yes.
Peg Conway.
Yes.
Ed Hattenbach.
Yes.
Alita Kamine.
Yes.
Ray Warren.
I will vote no, but I just want to, for the record, I certainly endorse the recommendation of pay raise. I have a problem with expanding this longevity pay. Thank you.
Natalie Wolf.
Yes.
Okay, and finally, we are, ordinance 2020-1, the changes to the parental leave. I mentioned this at our last meeting. This is the second reading of that ordinance. We will be voting on it in April, and I'll save any further comments for passage in April, and that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the manager's report.
Thank you. I have 4 items I want to mention. Last month, I mentioned that we have the retirement coming up at the end of April of our income tax administrator, Patty Myers. And I sought her replacement and actually made a hire. Jenny West, who has been employed with the City of Mason for the last 7 years as the accounting supervisor, began her duties with Amberley Village on March the 5th. Jenny comes to us from Mason, where she was responsible for payroll for between 300 and 400 employees, but she also oversaw accounts payable, accounts receivable, as well as fixed assets. Jenny has a bachelor's degree in accounting and in finance, and has worked both in the public sector as well as the private sector and some nonprofit work as well. So Jenny began on March the 5th, and we're excited to have her train along with Income Tax Administrator Patty Myers for the next 8 weeks to learn the position. So just wanted to make that announcement. The second I wanted to mention is that the village did have a meeting with Duke Energy in regards to the Central Corridor gas line. You may recall that this has been approved to move forward, so Duke is putting forth plans to consummate the construction of the gas line. It is a 13-mile long gas line, and they have not selected a contractor yet because it's not been put out to bid as of yet, but will do so in this year, and expect that construction will likely begin in the first quarter of 2021. The impact to the village is on our southwest side. It would run parallel to the railroad tracks and ultimately go underneath Section Road as it goes outside of the village into Gulf Manor. The purpose of the meeting was for Duke to inform and educate the village about what their plans are, and they are planning to regularly update the village on the status of the Central Corridor gas line. Third item I wanted to mention is the print newsletter, which will be received by residents in your mailbox later this week or early next week. So it includes quite a few articles that the residents will find helpful, so look for that in your mailbox. And the last item, I just want to put a plug in for the 2020 census. So this year marks the time that the country does a census, and it's going to affect everybody across the country. This year is the first year that you can fill out the census online, so that's an option that is available to residents. You can also fill it out by calling in to a particular phone number, or you can do it the old-fashioned way and mail it in. But residents will be receiving the notification later this week and next week of the census. So would encourage residents to take advantage of that. The advantage that the village experiences from this is that federal dollars are dependent on census population. So if residents do not fill out the census, then dollars do not come to the greater Cincinnati area. While the village does not receive a specific stream of revenue from the federal government for this purpose, overall we do benefit in terms of grants and other programs that we're able to take advantage of. So would encourage residents to fill out the census and be counted in 2020. And that concludes my report. Thanks.
Thank you. Moving on to the chief's report. Do we have, chief's not here?
Chief's not here in
the
there yet.
report from you?
No report.
Okay, thank you. And moving on to the mayor's report. Typically, Mayor Muthing gives a report about the Environmental Stewardship Committee, and I do have a couple things to report, but I'm now disorganized. Okay, so I was going to report that the Health and Wellness Fair would be at the JCC coming up, but I received word on March 15th, but I received word today that Health and Wellness Fair was canceled due to the pandemic of COVID-19 coronavirus, so everyone should stay home and stay away from big crowds, including wellness fairs. Oh, the JCC Community Blood Drive is also canceled. Okay. Too bad. And the Environmental Stewardship Committee One-Stop Drop is April 5th. And there has been a sign-up sheet circulating, and if you have not received it and would like to volunteer for the One-Stop Drop, please contact, you can contact Tammy, our clerk in the village, and she will have some information for you. And let's see, I feel like there was one more thing. Okay, well, that's it. The mayor will have to be here to give more information on that. I don't have any more announcements. I'm going to move on to the council appointment to the Human Rights Commission. And so the Human Rights Commission had an open slot. It was for a 3-year term commencing on January 1st, 2020, so it already commenced. It was a council appointment. Council held interviews, and we held a special meeting where we voted for Evelyn Jones, who is excited to be, who's going to be a great addition to the Human Rights Commission. Did we vote on that, or did we already vote on that? Okay. Is there a motion to approve Evelyn Jones' appointment?
I make a motion to approve Evelyn Jones to be appointed to the Human Rights Commission as is she a council as a council appointee.
It has been moved and seconded to appoint Evelyn Jones. Is that a roll call or a? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Welcome to Evelyn Jones. Okay, any new business? And there being none, I guess we can adjourn. Thank you, everybody. Wash your hands.